throwing footballs with Tyreek and Raheem?
They can't throw with me, bro. They can't throw with me. I be telling them that I played quarterback in high school. Like, telling them to watch my high school highlight tape. Like, they gonna see it accurate.
But you hit the net once.
I was warming up for real. Warming up, that's all. But they can't throw with me at all or run with me.
That was Jaylen Waddle on him being not only a better thrower than Raheem Mostert and Tyreek Hill. I'm pretty sure he snuck in a little jab that they can't run with him either.
I think Tyreek Hill can.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know about that one, but he definitely looked like he's the best thrower of them all. Jaylen Waddle tops the love list for pass catchers here, guys, and he's got the Eagles secondary that has been vulnerable this year. Waddle, we know what this Dolphins offense can do with all their playmakers, Matthew.
Yeah, I mean, what's positive here is we all know about Tyreek Hill, but Jaylen Waddle, after a little bit of a slow start for him to the season, has a 33% target share over the last 2 weeks, 5 end zone targets over the stretch, including multiple red zone targets in both games. For you, those of you listening to this show instead of watching it, you missed the highlight of his touchdown last week where Tyreek Hill was wide open in the flat and Tua threw across his body into coverage to get the ball to Waddle. Waddle still came down with it and got the touchdown. But, like, they're making an effort to get the ball to Jaylen Waddle, not just Tyreek Hill. And you mentioned the matchup, Connor. Philadelphia's allowed the second most touchdowns to opposing wide receivers this season. Tyreek Hill and Jaylen Waddle should both eat on Sunday night. I have Waddle at wide receiver 7. He's a wide receiver 1 for me this week. You're already starting him, but this is a particularly good matchup for Jaylen.
Yeah, and the sneaky thing with the Dolphins is that Tyreek Hill's not playing a ton of snaps. Like, they are using him in bursts. He's not playing. He's not playing the Jamar Chase 95% of the snaps kind of diet. He only played 25 snaps against the Giants a couple of weeks ago. So they are clearly, I think, because he broke down at the end of last season, just the way that he plays and that he's a smaller receiver, I think they want to manage him through the year, and Waddle should be the big beneficiary of that. Because people forget, like, Waddle was injured all preseason. He was injured to start the season. He was brought in slowly, and now it seems like he's full go, fully ramped up, 19 targets and 2 touchdowns the past 2 weeks.
Another wide receiver in the top 10 of Matthew's rankings this week, Jay, and he's on the love list as well. That's Brandon Aiyuk. Listen, potentially no Christian McCaffrey or Deebo Samuel. Even if we see them, you would imagine a limited capacity, and Aiyuk has the talent to carry an offense.
Yeah, definitely. I think Brock Purdy will bounce back. The Vikings blitz more than anyone else. I think that should play into Aiyuk's hands. Even last week, where that was the worst game of Brock Purdy's career, he still went 4 for 76 and had 10 targets, and he left yards on the table as well. Purdy missed him a couple of times. He had a drop too. So I think that Aiyuk, he's a locked-in top 10 wide receiver.
I would agree with you. I mean, like, again, the opportunity is there given the health of the surrounding 49ers, but he's had at least 25% target share in every game he's played so far this season. Overall, it comes out to a 30% target share. Top 5 among wide receivers in yards per target so far this season. So he's getting a lot of targets, and then he's top 5 in terms of yards per target, which is all exciting. We've talked about the Vikings defense a lot over the season here. Wide receivers that have seen at least 7 targets against the Vikings, averaging over 20 fantasy points per game. And so, guy who's really good, getting a lot of targets against a team that when you get a lot of targets against, you score a lot of fantasy points. Bingo, bango, ipso facto. Brandon Aiyuk on the love list here. He's my wide receiver 10 this week.
I think weirdly as well, like McCaffrey.
I didn't mean to use legal jargon there, but it is.
No, the point was conveyed.
Yes,
yeah.
Exactly. Sorry if I was confusing.
McCaffrey's clearly the guy who is most resilient to whoever is supporting passes. McCaffrey's always going to eat. Aiyuk is the next guy because Deebo just kind of seems to be marginalized a little bit, and he's the one who recedes into the background a little bit more. Purdy has more of a connection with Aiyuk than anyone else on that offense.
100%.
We talked about Josh Jacobs making the love list because he's got the Bears this week. The same could be said for his teammate in Jacoby Myers, who, when healthy, has been one of the more consistent wide receivers in fantasy, especially in PPR, Matthew.
He has, and I want to be clear here because we know Jacobs is going off, and I've already said I think this is a Devontae Adams like squeaky wheel gets the grease game where they've got to make a way to get 17 the ball. Having said that, we've seen it earlier in the season when Adams has had these huge games. Jacoby Myers continues to be, a factor here. 4 of the 5 games he's played this season, right? He's had 15 or more fantasy points. The Week 4 game with Aiden O'Connell starting, he had only 5.3 points. So let's watch to see the Garoppolo situation. I do feel like if Jimmy G is out, it'll be Hoyer.
I agree.
Just because O'Connell just really struggled. But at least a 22% target share in all 4 of those games. Bears tied with the 3rd most touchdowns allowed to wide receivers. I think this Bears defense is bad enough. Again, this is all contingent on Garoppolo starting. But I think the Bears defense is bad enough that Jacobs, Adams, and Jacoby Myers can all have very productive fantasy days.
Yeah, I think Chicago probably has the weakest secondary in football. I know statistically the Broncos have that mantle at the moment, but one that was skewed by the 70-20 game. And also, like, Pat Surtain and Justin Simmons, like, they should be better. I think the Bears project the rest of the way as the weakest pass defense in the league. And so the top 2 wide receiver against that secondary is just the start of it.
Yeah, I mean, don't forget that even in the game in which they blew out my Commanders, right? I mean, Sam Howell was still able to move the ball very effectively through the air against them in comeback mode, and they fell short. But the fact is like whatever little success the Bears have had this year, it hasn't been on the defensive side of the ball.
Can you imagine, Matthew, if your Commanders had just won as 6-point favorites at home, they'd be 4-2, favorites to go 5-2 against the Giants this week. It's unbelievable.
No,
they'd be a game back in the division.
Yeah, no, I know, but of course. We were on national TV in a game we should win, so of course we got our asses kicked.
If Ron had just gone for 2 against the Eagles, you might be 5-1.
Yeah.
Super Bowl. It's unbelievable.
Yes.
With Sam Howell.
You're still rooting for losses? Last week you were rooting for losses. Now all of a
I
sudden
go back
they pulled you back in.
They pulled me back in a little bit. I don't know. To
all
be
right
honest,
against the
I don't.
Falcons.
All right, I'm just be honest. I think there needs to be a change in leadership of the team. I never want to call for another man's job, but I don't think. I think Ron Rivera's taken the team as far as it can go, and so and I think that, and I don't think this is a Super Bowl team this year.
I agree.
when you look at it through that lens, I don't want the team to be good enough that, Anyway, I'm hoping for a fresh start next year. I think the Chicago loss to me was unconscionable.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Let's bring in Ben Johnson next year.
That's going to be the hire. That's going to be the hire.
Make some calls.
I like it.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought
Start
about
that campaign.
Like that? Yeah.
Oh, I hadn't.
Be exciting, wouldn't it?
Maybe Ben Johnson, maybe Drake May somehow. Quarterback, head coach, new era.
Yeah. But I mean, future Hall of Famer. We're not going to have a good enough draft pick to get Drake May unless we mark more. No,
you'll win too many games.
We'll win too many games. But I still believe in Sam Howell.
Sure.
I think Sam Howell is a flawed prospect with but there's enough tendencies which was what, by the way, Jared Goff was. I understand Jared Goff went number 1 overall or whatever, was a number 1 pick, and Sam Howell was a 5th rounder. But I think both guys possess similar traits in that they both have big arms. There are skills there where you're like, that's a guy that can be a starting quarterback in the NFL. And then there's also things where you're just like, sort of scratch your head. And so it appears that they've fixed a lot of that with Jared Goff, and I think the same can be done with Sam Howell, who is, again, improve the offensive line, work with him on his timing and getting the ball out quicker, and got something.
Yeah, no, I agree. Jared Goff, MVP candidate this year. What a world we live in.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Just saying. Anyway.
Our next one, Dallas Goedert against the Dolphins. We can't say it enough. We expect a lot of offense in this game, Jay. And when you look at Goedert, obviously a really slow start to the season, but the target share has been there since that slow start.
Yeah, it has been. Obviously, he went off in that game against the Rams. I think the refrain with Goedert has typically been that this team just runs the ball so much that it's hard to support 3 pass catches in A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and Goddard. I think you throw that out the window against Miami. This is going to be a shootout. They're going to have to be throwing the ball, I think. The total is in the low 50s, and I think that Goddard will be able to eat.
Dolphins are bottom 10 in terms of receptions and yards allowed to tight ends this season. You can throw against them in that area of the field. And by the way, both tight ends who saw at least 7 targets against Miami this year scored 16 or more fantasy points. Darren Waller and Hunter Henry, both guys who have been inconsistent this year, but showed up against Miami as well. So since week 2, a 21% target share. Dallas Goedert's my tight end 5 this week. Obviously, you want as much of this game as you can get.
Yep.
A couple others receiving votes out of the pass catchers: Zay Flowers, Terry McLaurin, Drake London, Jackson Smith, and Jigba. As we showed you at the top of the show, Tyler Lockett was on the injury report. That was we'll see where that goes throughout the week. Wan'Dale Robinson, Jonnu Smith, and Luke Musgrave here, Matt.
Yeah, you see the ranks on your screen, obviously. Flowers is a top 20 guy, 28% target share over the last 4 games, Terry McLaurin of my Commanders. Giants have allowed a touchdown to a wide receiver in 5 straight. Double-digit targets for Terry in 2 of the last 3. Drake London, they're throwing it all of a sudden. And the Bucs allow the 7th most yards per game to wide receivers. He's my wide receiver 27 as well. Wan'Dale Robinson is going to be a thing this year. I think it might be this year. 26% target share last week. 3 straight games with 5 or more receptions. You can obviously throw against my Commanders secondary, which struggles. JSN I want to bring up as well. I don't know that I'm at wide receiver 40 this week, so but I think he's a stash if he's still available in your league. He had 72% of the snaps last week. Like, we talked about this. Like, it's coming, right? I mean, we all believe in the talent. We just need the opportunity there. And you're starting to see in the underlying numbers that the opportunity is going to be there for JSN. Jonnu Smith and Luke Musgrave, if you're looking for a couple of tight ends outside the top 10. Both of them have good matchups and good usage.
We discussed yesterday how low the bar is at tight end right now. These are the guys that still matter if you need a stream. For the hate list, it's topped by George Pickens against the Rams right now, Jay. When you look at this game, obviously the Rams are favored in this one, and it's not that Pickens is the problem. He's had a really nice breakout year. Kenny Pickett and the Steelers' offensive line has been kind of a low-key disaster.
Yeah, it's been a loud disaster for mine. Yeah, it's been terrible. But the other thing, too, is that Deontay Johnson looks like he will come back. Pat Freiermuth is going to come back. So all of a sudden, this was Pickens' offense, which wasn't a great thing to begin with. But now he's going to be marginalized a bit. I mean, what do you think, Connor, of his role now that Deontay Johnson is likely back? Is his route tree just too simplified to provide a ton of value?
Well, I think the good thing is that Pickett is comfortable just throwing it up to him. And I think another good thing is Pickens' red zone usage shouldn't change at all. He should factor in there. I think it's the in-between the 20s that you start to worry about those touches because Deontay is so polished and gets open so easy, and the line can't protect, where they got to play quick game to Deontay. So, yes, this will matter.
Yep.
Look, it's not a great matchup against the Rams as well. 4th fewest fantasy points allowed to opposing wide receivers. The only game that Deontay Johnson played this week 1, to your point about his return, 15% target share. We think Kenny Pickett will be better out of the bye, but we don't know. It's been inconsistent so far. It's not like they can lean on the run game because of your boy Najee. Anyway, I have Pickens at wide receiver 31. There's always a chance he gets deep for one. Like he is one of those guys that only needs one big play, and he has the talent to make it, but don't have a ton of confidence in the offense or his role with Deontay Johnson back until I see it.
Our next one here, Jerry Jeudy against the Packers. And, this one, Matthew, for me, it's not just all about matchup. Jeudy has not turned into the guy we hoped he would be. He does not have many big games. This isn't a good passing offense. And you hear his name thrown around in trade rumors, but you don't even really get that excited because he hasn't broken out yet.
I mean, okay, Steve Smith.
Yeah,
but like, spot the lie. Spot the lie. Forget touchdowns. He has 0 end zone targets this season. Like, Russ isn't even looking for him when they get in close. I mean, again, we talk about this. Targets are earned, and when he's gotten in the end zone, he has not been able to earn a target, not even one target this year. He's been under 55 receiving yards in 4 out of 5 games this year. Packers, tough defense, 5th fewest receiving yards per game allowed to opposing wide receivers. So, yeah, even in a week in which 6 teams are on a bye, Jerry Jeudy outside my top 30 this week.
Our last one here, our second to last one here, Gabe Davis. He's our last receiver. He has the Patriots. The thing with Gabe Davis right now, Matthew, and this is often the story with him, is just targets. Stephon Diggs has been the entire offense every single week, and with Gabe Davis, it's usually the inconsistencies of it.
Yeah, he is touchdown dependent. He's the definition of a touchdown dependent wide receiver. Now, he had like a stretch there where he scored in 4 straight, so it's like you were loving it. But if he doesn't score a touchdown, he's averaging 4.3 fantasy points per game when he doesn't score a touchdown. So that's my question, is how lucky do you feel? If you think Gabe Davis gets into the end zone this week, you should start him. But if you don't, because he's had 4 fewer targets in 3 of the past 4 games, to your point about target share here, Connor, then probably should be on your bench. Worth noting that in the 2 games against the Patriots last year, and obviously the Patriots defense is much worse than it was last year, but still, just 54 combined yards in 2 games against New England last season. He's my wide receiver 41 this year. It's a game in which the Bills are heavily favored. I just don't think they're going to be throwing a ton. And so, again, to your less in volume, it literally is, he's a touchdown-dependent flex.
Yep. Just one thing on Gabe Davis and the Bills. There's a lot of alarm bells ringing because they only had 2 scoring drives against the Giants' defense. I'm kind of throwing that out just because they traveled 16 hours on a plane in the space of a week. They played a 9 a.m. Eastern game in London and then a night game on Sunday against the Giants the week after. I think they were just off kilter, and I think that they will bounce back. They had a lot of turnovers and stuff. I think we'll see a bounce back from a lot of Bills this week.
Fair enough.
Jay, our last pass catcher, we talked about him a little bit yesterday in Tyler Higbee against the Steelers. And listen, it's once again a low bar to clear for tight ends right now. But since Cooper Kupp has been back, Tyler Higbee's been forgotten in these last 2 games.
He has, and Kupp is obviously, he's the alpha and omega of that offense. I do think that he will see more work going forward. Now, this isn't a fantastic matchup against the Steelers, but they just never had the ball against the Eagles, and Stafford never had to throw against the Cardinals. So let's see the sample this week of Nakua, Kupp, and Higbee in maybe a more normal kind of game.
In the 2 games since Cooper Kupp returned, just 6 targets, to your point about that. Steelers allow the 6th lowest catch rate to opposing tight ends. He's my tight end 18 this week. Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBCSports.com and Rotorworld.com, and I want to thank you so much for watching whatever it is you just watched, or if nothing else, being too lazy to click out of the autoplay after this video started, after whatever it is you actually wanted to watch finished. But now that you're here, I'd like to take a moment here to ask you respectfully now, okay? I'm asking you respectfully to subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. You'll get the latest Roto-World fantasy news headlines, all sorts of great shows, including my own Fantasy Football Happy Hour. So go subscribe now. Again, I'm asking respectfully.